Thank you for that. Thank the praise team again. You can be seated this morning. I'm back. I didn't think you heard the announcements well enough the first time, so I wanted to, just kidding. I'm thankful for an opportunity to share with you today a little bit different than normal. Something that kind of been on my heart, so bear with me through this. I think it'll be helpful, and it was helpful for me, so I really just wanted to share something short with you today. And really just since conference, there's been these kind of connecting messages that we've heard from our pastor in the Word, and kind of just wanted to talk about that a little bit today. So I remember the theme of our conference was, "Are you serious?" Right? We were challenged to ask ourselves if we were really committed to God and what more we could be doing for Him. We even got bracelets, right? And then on Christmas, the sermon Dad preached was about how God gives us gifts, and sometimes we don't always open them. And then during New Year's, during Dad's 50th, celebrating his 50 years in ministry, he kind of reminded us and asked us, "Are you serious yet?" It had been a couple months since conference. Are you serious yet? Are you committed to God? Or are you just going through the motions? Right? And then in January and into February, he talked a lot about stepping up and stepping out of our old habits. We all kind of committed to stepping up into becoming the men and women of God we were called to be. And even our Tuesday bodybuilding classes, the theme has been "This Means War," and it's been about the thoughts that go through our heads that kind of keep us from doing what we are meant to do. And so I was just thinking through all that, and even in February or in March, Dad started a series about becoming who we are meant to be and to accept our destiny. So I'm reminding us all of that, just of the words and challenges we've heard, because I want to spend just a few minutes talking about purpose. And they say talk about what you know, so I'm going to talk about how kind of it's been, how it's gone for me so far this year, and some things that I've thought about. And so back during conference, the family, we were discussing the different outreaches and how we wanted to do more in social media and reach more people. We wanted to build a new website for the church. A lot of people won't come to your church nowadays until they kind of research you a little bit on the internet, and then maybe even a smartphone app, just kind of modernize a little bit. And one of the ideas that I had with social media was to start with the book of Genesis and create these kind of posts that take the Bible stories and summarize them in a way that maybe can relate more for people that don't go to church, aren't as familiar with them, and just kind of inspire. And they say that the average person spends about 3 hours a day on social media sites on their phones. That's the average. If you don't do it that much, that means there's someone that does it even more. So just think about that on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, taking selfies and putting bunny ears on yourself on Snapchat. I'm not cool enough for that one, but see people doing it all the time. And 3 hours. So, just if we could just have a minute or two out of someone's day to give them a little message that maybe encourage them on something they're going through, or maybe inspire them to look up this story if it's something that related to them. Look it up in the Google and read the Bible verse and be helped. So we did that, and then with the help of my family and some of you, I was able to help build and launch the new website. And I'm saying all of that just because when Dad was preaching about getting serious, and I was feeling pretty good, actually. I was doing more for the church than I had been doing. It was kind of a daily commitment to doing this. So I was feeling pretty good. You know how when Dad preaches, or Pastor preaches about something and you kind of already feel you do it, you kind of pay attention a little bit more, you nod a little bit more because you're like, I got this, right? You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about, right? And then you know that right after that's usually when the rug gets ripped out from under you. So that's kind of what I wanted to share. So the kind of process, just reading through the Bible and creating these. So a few weeks ago, we're up to Exodus now, if you're paying attention on Facebook. So I get to the part where the Israelites had left Egypt. They had fought the Amalek and the Amalekites, and they were at Mount Sinai, and Moses got the 10 Commandments. I was like, okay, well, this will be easy. I was still feeling good. It's pretty much handed to you, thou shalt not. You can make that pretty relatable today. It wouldn't, I was still feeling good. And then I get to this part, where God talks to Moses about this sanctuary that he wants him to build, and the children of Israel to build for him. And for like 8 chapters, it is the most detailed account of how he wants the Ark of Testimony, Ark of the Covenant, to be built. And the tabernacle that he wants it to be housed in, and all this furniture, and the priest's robes, and how Aaron's is different than the rest of them. And I was thinking, God, this is the most boring chapters in the whole Bible. And I'm sure I just offended some of you. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, I want to read it to you so you can see. But just remember that I'm doing this because part of the rereading of it was specifically to create these posts and reach out to people, or more accurately give you some tools to reach out to people that we don't know. So let me read this to you. It's awesome. So it's in Exodus 25:8 if you want to read it later. He's talking about what he wanted to build, and he said, let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. According to all that I show you, this is the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all the furnishings, just so you shall make it. So the Ark of the Testimony. They shall make an ark of acacia wood. 2.5 cubits shall be its length, and 1.5 cubits shall be its width, and 1.5 cubits shall be its height. And you shall overlay it with pure gold. Inside and out you shall overlay it, and you shall make on it a molding of gold all around. You shall cast 4 rings of gold for it, and put them in its 4 corners. 2 rings shall be on one side, and 2 rings shall be on the other. And you shall put poles into the rings on the side of the ark, that the ark may be carried by them. The poles should be of acacia wood, and you should overlay them with gold. And you shall put the poles in the rings, and they shall not be taken from it. You shall put it into the ark, the testimony which I will give you. And you shall make a mercy seat of pure gold. 2.5 cubits shall be its length, and 1.5 cubits its width. Taking notes. And you shall make 2 cherubim of gold of hammered work. You shall make them at the 2 ends of the mercy seat. Make 1 cherubim at one end, and another cherubim at the other. And you shall make the cherubim at the 2 ends of one piece with the mercy seat. And the cherubim shall stretch out their wings above, covering the mercy seat with their wings, and they shall face one another. The faces of the cherubim shall be toward the mercy seat, and you shall put the mercy seat on top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony that I give you. And there I will meet with you, and I will speak with you from above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubim, which are on the ark of the testimony, about everything which I give you in commandment to the children of Israel. So it goes on, and I could keep reading it. You want about a table for the showbread, or for the golden lampstand, the tabernacle itself, the altar of burnt offering, the how to care for the lampstand, and the priest for the garments for the priest, and the ephod. Remember that Leo Price even wore an example for it a couple weeks ago or months ago. But it goes on, and the incense, and how to make it holy, and no one else could make their incense that way, and the holy anointing oil. And so, remember, I'm trying to think, the purpose of reading these is, how am I going to figure this into something encouraging for people? So I started to feel down. I wasn't feeling as good about this new purpose that I was doing. It got challenging, and about this same time, Mom and Dad were planning their cruise that we all sent them on. And they asked me if I would take a service for them. And it's not the first time they've asked. But the excuse I always kind of had in my mind was that it wasn't something I really knew how to do yet. Wasn't ready yet. I knew I heard things from God, but didn't feel he had given me something to share. But then I started thinking about how Dad said we need to get serious about stepping up. And so I was thinking about what I read, and I remembered back in Genesis, there was a story of this guy who was a little bit of a conniver, a little schemer, named Jacob. And then he had this encounter with God, and it changed his life, and he got a new name. And I remember thinking, okay, I can use that. And I know people will identify with that. A lot of us have a past, or even if we pretend we don't. So I was ready to tell him, I got it. I can do this. This was a Saturday, a couple weeks ago. The next Sunday, I was ready to tell him that I would do it. And Dad started a new series that Sunday on about becoming who you are meant to be and embracing your new name. And do you remember the story in the Bible that he used for that sermon? All right, he's going to be watching this. If you weren't paying attention, it was Jacob, everyone. the same story that I was ready to use, and I was like, man, he stole my sermon. What am I going to do now? It took me 37 years to come up with that. Don't know what I'm going to do. So I didn't tell him that I would do it. I put it off another week and said I'd pray about it. That's a Christian excuse. If we're not ready to say we'll do something or no yet, we say we'll pray about it. So then I was thinking about, still in those chapters in Exodus, and I remember I'm trying to turn blueprints of an altar and dress patterns for a robe into some kind of inspiring quote. And I was reading them, and I was trying to figure out what to do, feeling a little guilty because I was thinking about just skipping it, because if you don't go to church, you're not going to know necessarily know that's part of the Bible. Even if you do, you might not know the exact timeline or call me out on it. So I was thinking about doing that, and then it was like God said, just keep reading. And the thought came that, when you're in the middle of something, it doesn't always make sense. But just don't stop. When you get to the end, it will. So I got to the end of all of this, all of these instructions. And I want to read to you the last part. So this is Exodus 31:1. It says, Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, See, I have called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. And I have filled him with the Spirit of God, in wisdom, in understanding, in knowledge, and in all manner of workmanship, to design artistic works, to work in gold and silver and bronze, in cutting jewels for setting, in carving wood, and to work in all manner of workmanship. Indeed, I have appointed with him Oholiab the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, and I have put wisdom on the hearts of all the gifted artisans, that they may make all that I have commanded you. So I thought about that, and he called them by name. He appointed them. He put the wisdom in their heart to do what he commanded them to do. And it just hit me in a new way what Dad has been sharing, or Pastor has been sharing, that God has a purpose for each of us. And he called us by name to do it. So Annie sings a song, He Knows Your Name, or He Knows My Name. And so I just think how, it was just kind of a cool example of this, and that he has that plan. And I thought about, I think Dad's preached on it recently, about when the Israelites left Egypt. God had them borrow jewelry and riches from the Egyptians. Remember the Egyptians that were controlling them, and they were like, sure, take it, just get out of here. We want the plagues to go away. And did you ever, I never thought about it, but why did they do that? Never really thought about it. It's not like they need money in the desert for fast food on the way or anything like that. It's just more to carry. But it was because he already knew that he would need and wanted the Ark of the Covenant to be built. And so he knew they would need gold and silver to build it. So he knew that. So he had them bring it ahead of time. He planned for it. He already knew that Bezalel was going to do it. He already had that plan. So, recently Dad said, God gives you the tools you need. Quit looking for excuses not to do what he called you to do. And I thought here was a really great example of that, little example. He gave Bezalel and Oholiab, and if I'm messing up the names, I apologize. But he gave them the wisdom to do what they were called to do. And to me, that I was thinking about that they probably weren't construction workers or some kind of carpenters, maybe. Maybe it wasn't already the calling. God gave them the wisdom to do it. And I imagine that when Moses told them what he needed from them, that they were probably like, oh, I don't know how to do that. No, maybe for a minute. And I thought, how many of us do that? No, I don't know how to do that. Don't ask me. Find somebody else, Well, I'm not looking around, but when our pastors ask us to do something like help in Sunday school or nursery, we say, oh, I wouldn't be good at that, right? Just as an example of things. We try to get somebody else. But something inside these men must have told them to do it anyway. And they did. So kind of my first thought, just to share with you, is just to remind you that God has called you by name. He knows your name. To do your purpose. And he's already given you the skill and the wisdom to do it. And you might not even realize it until you say, I'll do it, and step into the task. The Bible said, God said, I have filled him, Bezalel, with the Spirit of God, in wisdom, in understanding, and in knowledge. So everything you need to perform the task, that him and the other artists may make all that I have commanded. So really all we have to do is just do it, to do what he's asked us to do. And again, it kind of connected again for me. So going back to what we've heard from our pastor on Christmas when he said that we all have gifts. and some people leave theirs unopened their entire life. Don't be one of those people. I thought about Bezalel and Aholiab. They could have said no. They had the skill. He already gave them the gift, but they could have just left it unopened. And so we need to be willing to ask God what purpose he has for us, and maybe it won't come directly from him. Maybe like Moses relaying this to Bezalel, it'll come from our pastors asking us to do something. And we need to be willing and open to do it. And it's then we'll realize that God has given us the skill and wisdom to do it. And maybe he'll take a skill you already have, a hobby you already have, or a job you already do, and use those skills in a different way. And you'll realize that it is part of your calling. And as I was reading this and had these thoughts, I was thinking about some of you. Think about April. How, at a young age, I don't know why I'm crying right now because this isn't sad, but, at a young age, she was able to work with David Brainerd, an award-winning producer, to learn about lighting and television and sound, and learn from that to be able to use it here. He knew how many years ago, 20 years ago, when she worked with David, that in the future she'd be able to do that, and we'd be able to bless people from afar. Heather on stage camera. She didn't go to camera person school or whatever they call it, but she was willing to do it and found a talent within herself and does an amazing job. The same goes for Tracy and Sean and Kevin and Danielle and all that are on the media crew. They were asked to help and they did it. They said, I'll do it. So if you don't believe that God has given you skills to do what he's called you to do, just ask them. Ask Jessica, our longest running Sunday school teacher other than my mom. She didn't go to school to become a teacher, but God gave her this insane amount of patience, if you know her, and kindness that just makes her so great at it. So a lot of examples here today, but just wanted to, show you even within this church where we have examples of that today. And for me, I remember sitting there after I was reading about God calling the artist Bezalel and the others and giving them that knowledge. Then I was thinking about how the pastors called me asked me to cover a service. I was like, God, I'm really not hearing anything from you yet. I don't know what I would share. I've not heard a message like that. I'm just not ready. And then all the posts from the last 90 days started kind of flash through my mind, where it was taking Bible verses and turning them into a message. And he said, you didn't think you came up with those, did you? And so I was like, no, kind of did. And so it was right then that I, picked up my phone and just sent my parents a text that said, I'll do it. So if you don't know what purpose God has for you, just ask him and take time to listen, and he'll reveal it to you. Then it's up to you to say, I'll do it. And that's, when you're doing what you're called to do, and sometimes it can be a lot of different things at the same time, but have you ever noticed that you kind of start to obsess over some of them? You want to make sure they're just right. I think it's cool because when that happens for you, it's kind of your purpose is meeting your passion, and it's just really cool. I think it's in those moments that you start to feel part of something larger going on and can feel what's happening. So you see some of those in the church getting excited, and when are you getting excited with them? And I think that's part of what it is. They're seeing the purpose and what we're meant to do and meeting their passion, and it's just awesome. And I remember thinking about that a few weeks ago. Donnie was laughing at me because he was watching me design an ad for the night of worship. And I didn't realize I was doing it or how long, but I was changing the background colors. We don't have it up here, but from like a medium gold tint or something to a darker gold and back and forth, just trying to get it right. And he was like, you realize both of those are fine. No one's going to notice. Just let's go. But I wanted it to be just right. I hadn't got it yet. And then we laughed because I reminded him of how when he's preparing the crafts for Sunday school, he'll cut out things ahead of time for the kids, and he is just zoned on cutting that out. And I'm like, the kids are just going to do it as fast as they can. They're not going to notice. But he wanted to get it right. Or when asked to cater a banquet, the amount of thought that he puts into those meals and traveling around and trying different bread just to make sure it'll be the right thing. So when you have a passion for your purpose, you take pride in it. It's a positive pride. And you want it to be perfect for the people that experience it. So I've been doing them for a while, but I can tell you I still get excited when you see that someone liked it or shared the post. If you're not familiar with social media, I'm sorry, you should. You can learn actually when the kids, but just that someone commented on it or shared it with their friends, it means that it had an impact on you, and I got to be a part of that. So it's something really cool. And I can't describe it, but if you know what I mean, then you know what I mean. And that's kind of why I wanted to share this message with you. When you realize that God has a purpose for you and you accept it, you do get to be a part of this, just something bigger than you. And you may never know the impact or what extent the impact you'll have on someone else's life. I was thinking about Bezalel and Aholiab, and they had no idea what the impact of what they were building would have, that the Ark of the Covenant would be in battles with the Israelites, and God's presence would help them win. It would get stolen, and King Solomon would eventually build a temple for it and be amazing, and that Indiana Jones would have to steal it back from the Nazis, and just seeing if you're paying attention, or that their obedience, gives someone his first message to his church. So they don't know that, and you might not know the impact you're having, but just have a passion for your calling. And for those of you that are already walking in it, my kind of challenge or encouragement for you today would be to just ask yourself if you're doing it to the best of your ability. Or are you just checking it off? Sometimes I think when we know what we're doing, we know we're doing what we're called to do, and we enjoy it, but after some time, we kind of just, our passion for it can start to wane. And we kind of just, like I said, go through the motions on it. And I think at those times, it could be that maybe our season in that purpose is past and we need to pray about our next one. But more often, I think we've just let the passion wane, and we need to find a way to rekindle that passion and challenge ourselves to take it to a new level in what we're called to do, make it even better, kind of our purpose 2.0. And, I was thinking about a couple months ago, I can't remember why, but we were helping out in Sunday school. I think one of the teachers had an emergency, and they were making this craft, and there was a lot of things to color. And then they would put it all together. And the kids were just going through it like it was a race or like a marathon. The colors didn't match. They were outside the line. They were not, it was just how fast can I get it done? Check off what the requirement. I want to go spin in the corner or something. So before they finished, they went on to the next one. I said, okay, guys, for the next section of this, we're going to have a contest. And you're going to vote on who did theirs the best. There was no prize. They were going to vote. Immediately, they got quiet. They were calmed down. They were paying attention to what colors. They were mixing markers and crayons together, coloring them together in new patterns. A couple messed up, and they wanted a new page to start over because they wanted theirs to be good. And I just thought that was kind of a good illustration of that point around don't just go through the motions. Ask yourself, are you doing what you're called to do to the best of your ability? And back to my buddy Bezalel, when he's doing what he's called to do, just imagine how much care they must have taken into building the ark. They knew God commanded them to do it. He had given them the wisdom and the knowledge to do it, and they were entrusted to get it right. And I think if we should just look to make sure we're finding it within ourselves to do the same, whatever it is we're called to do. And when we're standing before God, if he asks, what did you do for me? Who wouldn't want to be able to say, I did what you called me to do, and I did it to the best of my ability? I don't think it's a pride. I think it's passion for what you do, and just want to encourage you with that today. And kind of the final point, or as Dad would say, repeat after me. He's almost done. Okay, repeat. Dad, my first one didn't work. I'll try it for next time. Okay, so final point to bring to you is about a purpose we all have. All of us have several, but the one is to support each other in our individual purposes. Not all of us will have one that's up front or seems glamorous or exciting. Some require actual manual labor or time or to be in the background. It's called working in the kingdom of God, so that implies that there's work involved. So we need to support each other and encourage each other regularly. So in the story, seeing what we've been studying, the Bible says that Moses saw the work that Bezalel and the artists had done, and he blessed them. And it feels good when our pastors or our leaders say good job, right? But the Bible also says before the work began that Moses told the Israelites what God had commanded them to build, and he told them who he called to do the work. And then he took this free will offering for the supplies to do it. And they brought jewelry made of gold and silver and bronze and all the precious stones that they borrowed from the Egyptians. And in fact, they brought so much that the builders had to tell Moses, they brought too much. Tell them to stop. We have more than we need. And I thought, how cool would that be if our pastors had to tell us, stop giving to our Appalachia Outreach. We have too many coats and shoes. And stop giving we have too much money for our media outreaches, or we have too much money for the new church we're going to build. How cool would that be? And that could be a great story for a sermon on offerings. You can breathe. I'm not going to move into that this time, but if you need one, there you go. It was really for me more about that the Israelites were supporting the work that the artists were doing for Bezalel, and I think we just need to encourage and support each other. So, ask yourself, have you ever told our pastor that you enjoyed his teaching after a service? Really think about it. Have you ever actually come up to him and said that, or let him know how it had an impact? Or if you're watching remotely or watching it later, leaving a comment. Don't you think he could use encouragement? How much easier do you think it is for him when we respond during sermons with an amen, that's right, or actually repeat after him when he asks us to? It shows him that we're with him and that what he's saying is impacting us. When the praise team is standing and leading us in worship, how much easier it must be for them to lead us when they see us standing and praising with them. And have you ever thanked each of them for the hours of practice that they put in? Or the thought, just think about the hours that it took to learn new songs and all the words and when to come in and the parts and the harmonies. And some of us will say it's hard to stand the whole time during praise and worship. So we should think about our media crew and appreciate that they stand the entire service every Sunday, even when the pastor's long-winded. We should make sure to thank April and Danielle for making sure the sound is working and that we have words to sing along if we don't know them yet. We should thank Linda and Bonnie and all those that keep the church and the grounds clean and looking beautiful. And, we can help them out. So, when you're in the bathroom and you notice the person in front of you maybe got a little too ambitious with washing their hands and water's everywhere, grab a paper towel, wipe it down for them. Help. That's a form of support, too, is not just making them do it and thanking them for it, helping them out with it. And those of you that have, kids in Sunday school, have you ever thanked the teachers? Have you ever, gone to meet them and say thank you? Actually, you should buy them a gift because they're putting up with your little angels, and it's the hardest position for churches to fill, and they're doing it willingly. So, two, you can support them by asking your kids what they learned in Sunday school. Have you ever actually done that and asked them? Because they'll say, I don't know. But challenge them to pay attention. Support the teachers. Ask them, see if they were asked to learn a Bible verse. And then make it a point to make sure your kid learns it. I can imagine for them it would be disheartening, that maybe none of the kids even knew their Bible verse the next week because no one kind of supported you. So, there's things we can do for everybody. Dara and Brent, as the leaders are Rooted, and all the Rooted group, have you appreciated them for what they're doing to reach out to the young adults in our community? It's things that not all of us can do, but it's on their hearts and their purpose to do it. So we may not be in the right age group for it, but tell your friends and relatives about it. Encourage people to come, and if you really stop and just look around and think about all the work that it takes to get the church service to function, not the church as a body and the ministry, but literally the church to function, you realize it's not just financial support that's needed. It's people that recognize the need and a purpose and said, I'll do it. So I encourage you today to take time to begin to genuinely appreciate each other more than once. Tell someone you're glad to see them, but thank them for what they do. and ask him, and if we all do, each of us will feel encouraged, and we'll want to continue to do our best. And yes, it's doing what you're doing for God is more than enough to do it, but it does feel good when someone tells you and recognizes someone that you know. So don't you agree that it feels good when someone notices what you did? So we'll try this again. In closing, I do want to go back one more time to those boring chapters that I mentioned, because I'm wondering if some of you still haven't forgiven me for saying the Bible was boring, so I want to make you feel better. So I prayed about it, as I said, and what kind of God showed me after this was that the tabernacle and the ark were where he planned to dwell among, or where he said, where I plan to dwell among my people. So if my plans were so meticulous for a dwelling made of wood and lined with gold, do you not realize how much more detailed the plans I have for my children, in whose hearts I plan to live? So when I heard that, what seemed boring suddenly just seemed awesome. He has such detailed plans for our lives. We just need to say, I'll do it. And that's my prayer, really, for all of us today. Is, like I said, as I close, I pray that you take time to ask God to reveal his purpose for you and prepare your heart to be willing to say, I'll do it. Amazing things are happening at Spirit of Truth, and we want you to be a part of it. It's going to take all of us. I pray for those walking in your purpose to likewise ask God to reveal how you can do more for him. Maybe it's serving in a new ministry, or maybe it's just renewing the passion to do what he called you to do and take it to that next level. Pray that and ask God to place it in your heart to remember to appreciate the work of the ministry, to show appreciation for our pastors, and to verbally support those around us who are doing what they're called to do. So we're all able to say, God, I did what you called me to do, and I did it to the best of my ability. And to hear him say back, well done, my good and faithful servant. So, amen for that. So.